What is inquiry-based learning? Students and their curiosities construct the base of the IBL approach. Rather than having the teacher pose a question to students seeking a correct answer, learning is instead guided by students' own questions. They are encouraged to share their thoughts, ideas, and observations as active learners of both the subject and of the world. Historically, much of education has been a one-way street. Educators gift knowledge to learners who passively receive it. This style has left many students feeling uninvolved and unimportant in their own learning journeys. When they are burdened with heaps of assignments, projects, and readings, they are naturally inclined to ask, why? Why am I learning this? What is the purpose? Why should I care? A traditional instructor might reply, because you need to know this to pass the class, or because you're being marked on it, both of which are unsatisfying answers that consider only the results and not the learning itself. Inquiry-based learning takes this why and makes it the centerpiece of the classroom. There are 4 steps of IBL. First, have students develop questions they are hungry to answer. Next, give them time during class to research their question or topic. After they finish their research, have students present what they've learned. The 4th, and perhaps most important step, is to ask students to reflect on what did and didn't work about the process. But why is inquiry-based learning effective and important to student success? By getting students to ask and answer their own questions, they can take the reins of their education and delve into topics and perspectives they're actually interested in. Chapter 10 of the Third Path discusses the condition of meaning in education, stating that it is a crucial source of motivation and fulfillment. Motivation is something that many students struggle with, which can affect both their academic performance and their sense of self. By relying on extrinsic motivation such as grades, lower-performing students will feel less important than higher-performing students, making them less motivated to put forth effort, and those who achieve higher grades will feel extra pressure. Inquiry-based learning instead promotes intrinsic motivation, learning for its own sake. By giving students the keys to their own learning, they will grow to be less focused on performance and pleasing others, and more focused on following their own curiosities to become self-reliant and open-minded individuals.
While inquiry-based learning could take almost any form in an English classroom, we wanted to honor Parker Palmer's pedagogical paradox of a bounded and unbounded classroom by tying this activity to a fairly ubiquitous English language activity, the novel study. Because this activity revolves around a central text, it could actually be reused with nearly anything at the center. A movie, a poem, an academic article, the news, a cereal box. Okay, maybe not a cereal box. The point is, the wide world of the English language is your oyster. Our first step in this activity is to show students how to capture their flashes of connection, inspiration, and query as we move through the text. Not all students will be familiar with doing this, unless you have fostered a classroom where those moments are respected and investigated. As an educator, you will have to model what those flashes look like and how to capture them. We recommend that you spend the first week reading with your students and going, aha, out loud a lot. We also recommend that you create a curiosity board in your classroom. This can be physically on the wall, or it can be hosted on the internet somewhere. Anything that interests the students can go on the wall. A question, an idea, a topic, whatever. Just to give you an example of what we mean by all this, if you are reading Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, for instance, you can model this for your students as you go along by showing your metacognition out loud. Huh, you say. Privet drive sounds an awful lot like private. Let's put that on the wall for future investigation. Or, weird. They use owls to deliver letters. Is that accurate? I wonder what kinds of birds can be trained to deliver letters. Hopefully, your students will see what you're doing and begin to ask more questions themselves and post them on the wall as they do so. The next step in the process is for students to pull something from the curiosity wall and formulate it into a question that they can explore. Of course, some of the postings on the curiosity wall will already be questions, but they might not all be. Besides the question about birds and Privet Drive, you might find single words like trains, mandrake, and Scotland. Students should translate the idea into a researchable question, or even better, more than one. You could offer some scaffolding for this questioning process if the students seem to need it. For example, you could offer question roots like, what is blank? Or how does blank exist in the real world compared to how it exists in the text? However, keep in mind that the best inquiry processes is to let them formulate the questions themselves and just watch where it takes them. Next, the students should engage in research to answer their questions. We recommend you offer them class time to do this. The level of the students and the complexity of their research questions would dictate how much class time should be offered to them. Depending on the level of the students and how comfortable they are with research, you should also model the research process. Show them how to start, where to go, what information to keep, how to take notes, etc. The next step is for students to show what they've learned. This starts with the building of the one-pager. The one-pager can take almost any form. You can set the parameters in your own classroom, but we like the idea of a trading card template or a freestyle page that includes facts, drawings, and anything else the student might like to include. Remember, this can also be done digitally on a Google Slide, for example. The possibilities of format, content, and design are practically endless. Explore what works best for you and your students. Finally, on the due date, students will present their one-pagers and research to the rest of the class. This can take any form you wish: individual presentations, a gallery walk, small group presentations, etc. Students can ask questions of each other and comment on what they find most interesting in each other's presentations. After the student presentations, or after each individual presentation, you could have a class or group discussion to connect all that research back to the text. You could ask students questions like, how does this information relate to the text? Or, why do you think that is? Or, how does learning about all these things help us understand the text better? Wow, what awesome learning! After students have presented, they should be asked to reflect on their process that they have just engaged in to better understand their thinking process. You could ask them questions like, how did they come up with their inquiry question? How did their mindset affect how they approach the work? And so many more. We have included a link at the end of this video if you want a few more questions. Before we finish up, we wanted to mention how we think this should be presented and how it can be extended. First, we recommend you build a web. Again, this could be physically in your classroom or hosted on the internet somewhere. Building a web helps to visually represent the connections between the text and the work students have done. And if you keep that work around, students can refer back to it again and again. You don't have to stop this process after the novel is over or after the first presentations. You could have students keep track of the questions they have for each other and engage in another round of research, adding that research to the web as it's completed. Students could also go back to the original text, choose something that interests them, and do the whole process over again. You could even tie in your next unit and add the second text to the web. Are there ways that the second text connects to the first one through any of the themes or questions researched? The opportunities for this process are nearly endless, and along the way, your students learn not only how to become naturally curious, but how to connect their text to the world around them and to other texts, improve their reading, writing, and oral communication, and likely enjoy the text even more than normal.
Inquiry-based learning is an excellent tool and can provide students with many benefits, but like any other teaching style, there are ups and downs. There are times where inquiry-based learning might not be the best approach, and of course we must be careful when painting with a broad brush, as some students might not excel in this style of learning. Here are some pros and cons. If taught properly, students will be able to strengthen their researching skills and hone their ability to ask critical and fruitful questions. Students will also be engaging in a lot of problem solving and working without direct instruction, which can foster more independent and capable students. IBL also gives students an opportunity to explore academic topics free of teacher direction, which helps deepen their interest in a given topic. The main positive of IBL is that it gives students freedom, a freedom to direct their own learning, and to focus on things that they can be passionate about, or at the very least, a freedom to choose their path instead of having it laid out before them. But IBL has its complications, and it's important to be aware of them. One main complicating factor involved with IBL is its relationship with the paradox of a bounded and unbounded classroom. Designing IBL lessons can be tricky because students need structure, and some students might not be as prepared to self-direct their learning as others. If a teacher doesn't strike the right balance, then students are at risk of feeling lost or overwhelmed by what is asked of them. It's important to remember that differentiated instruction is all about working with students who are better suited to different learning styles, so no one style will be a one-size-fits-all solution. The other main complication with IBL is having students create their own questions might feel like extra work to some of the students. In our exemplar, we worked with the students to guide them in the formation of their questions, so that if any of them felt lost, we would be able to help them directly. IBL is a teaching style that is supposed to be self-directed by the students. So, striking the balance between giving your students freedom and giving them the support that they need is crucial to avoid students falling through the cracks. IBL can be a great tool in the English curriculum, but it doesn't have to just be used exactly as we did in our example. IBL can be great for group work. Having students work together in groups to explore deeper into a media study can simultaneously deepen their communicative and collaborative skills. Perhaps using small inquiry assignments each week could keep the students actively attentive and curious about media studies. IBL can be used during reflection back on a unit or a novel, but it can also be used to introduce a unit and help students co-develop a path forward in a class. Using IBL at the beginning of a unit could help foster interest and allow students to feel like the lessons are something that they are a part of, rather than something that is happening to them. You could even reintroduce their inquiries throughout the unit, since you know that they're already curious about these topics. Whether you're using it to introduce, to expand, or to consolidate learning, IBL is an excellent tool in any teacher's belt.